Alright, hello citizens of the Nigelverse. It is Nigel here once again, and this is going to be another wrestling review. In fact, the final wrestling review of the month of September, and aka my birth month. And I decided to go out with a bang. So, I'm going to present you guys with a very, very hot take. Are you ready? Are you ready for this smoking hot, hot as magma take that I'm about to bestow on you? Well, here it is. 2020 kind of sucked. Yes, I know. I'll give you a second to process what I just said, but yeah, 2020 wasn't the best. Had something to do with that kind of pandemic that ruled most of the year, but at the very least, we were able to get one last major Royal Rumble in before everything went downhill. So let's talk about it. I'm going to be talking about the men's 2020 Royal Rumble match. And granted, you may be like, Nigel, why are you talking about this? Isn't this supposed to be your childhood month? You weren't a child when this happened. You're right. I was a full grown adult. I was 19 when this match took place. It's obviously only a few years ago, but there were a lot of things that happened in this match that I absolutely enjoyed. A pretty solid Rumble match. I'd argue so far like the best Rumble of the decade, of the 2020s, which unfortunately isn't saying much considering the fact that 2021 happened in front of the Thunderdome, and then 2022 and 2023 Rumbles sadly weren't that great. But the men's 2020 Heat Rumble, I argue, they definitely knocked it out of the park with that, including a major moment. So without further ado, let's get right into it. As always, I'm not professional wrestling reviewer or analyst, just a man who enjoys a good time. If my little opening spiel was anything to go by, I definitely had with this match. So let's get into why. So for those of you who have seen these reviews of mine before, you kind of already know how this works. For those of you who haven't, I'm going to be talking about what I liked and what I disliked about the match. So starting with what I liked. For starters, the Rumble lasted about an hour, so it's a nice, decently lengthy Rumble for the most part. But there were a number of nice entrants, even having a few NXT pop-ups in there, including Keith Lee and Matt Riddle, which is crazy that neither of those two are in WWE anymore. In fact, there's quite a few people who either are released and are still released, or were released and then came back. But decent field of competitors. There's, for the most part, like this opening, like pretty much entrance 1 through 16 was essentially dominated by Brock Lesnar, who was the WWE champion at this time, entered at number 1, and pretty much took out 13 people before being eliminated by a combination of Ricochet and Drew McIntyre, which Drew McIntyre would go on to win the Royal Rumble match. It was a awesome moment, a definitely feel good moment to cap off an awesome Rumble. But it wasn't the only reason it was awesome, because it's time to talk about what I'm sure you all are anxiously waiting for me to talk about: the return of Edge. Edge, who had been who had gone to retirement in 2011. 9 years later, he is back here in the Royal Rumble, back, and it feels so good. Kicking off his second WWE run, which just wrapped up this year. Edge no longer on the internal WWE roster, maybe AEW bound, but at the time, it definitely was a feel-good moment. When I first watched this, I don't cry that often nowadays. I used to cry a lot more when I was younger, but I don't cry a whole lot nowadays, admittedly. But this moment almost got me. Seeing the music hit and And seeing him come out, the reaction, Edge, I wasn't gonna be the only one who was almost crying, because there's people in the audience who were crying. Even Edge himself, like you could tell, was almost on the verge of tears. The crowd popped as soon as his music hit, and yeah, so he was. So it was awesome to see him back, and he lasted pretty much all the way until like the final four, which the final four was Edge, Randy Orton, Roman Reigns, and Drew McIntyre. And that's another thing worth mentioning, is that normally with like the Royal Rumble matches, you'll usually get like one or two feuds heading into WrestleMania. It kind of started, obviously the main one being the World Championship situation, and then maybe one or two other storylines, but there was actually quite a few storylines. So that would culminate with matches at Mania, and even some stuff that kind of wrapped up a little bit. We saw Kofi and Brock interact, although Kofi was quickly disposed of by Brock. Unfortunately, he did last a little bit. He lasted longer than a lot of the other competitors, but he. Fortunately, didn't last a super long time, and was numbed out by Brock Lesnar, kind of carrying over their feud from when Kofi lost the WWE Championship to him. Then there was the interaction, everything between Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins, who would go on to face at Mania. This was right as Seth Rollins had turned heel. He established his heel group with AOP and Buddy Murphy, now known as Buddy Matthews, I should say, in AEW. So that essentially got started. We see the beginnings of Edge and Randy Orton. That feud going into WrestleMania with Edge, with them teaming up for a bit in the Rumble before ultimately he Edge dumping out Randy Orton. So a lot of stuff starting to get cooking for WrestleMania. And it was pretty cool to see like some of that stuff starting to begin. And I feel like with the Rumble being the beginning to the road to WrestleMania, having stuff like that kick off, having like a lot of feuds and stuff kick off within the match, I think is a very smart idea, and that's exactly what this match accomplished. And Brock dominating a bit, that like he definitely showed his dominance, eliminating 13 people pretty much like one by one, with him even being alone at points. But there were a couple like funny / cool moments. There was the kind of mini reunion with Shelton Benjamin before he got dumped out, and then obviously the moment with Keith Lee. Brock Lesnar saying "big boy" as Keith Lee was coming out, and it definitely was. And man, it's a shame. Like just going back and watching this. Just going back and watching that moment between Brock and Keith Lee, and then knowing how Keith Lee ended up turning out in WWE, I don't get it. I still don't get it. You had Brock, kind of like endorsing Keith Lee, and I think he even endorsed Keith Lee after this match, but kind of endorsing Keith Lee like big boy. Keith Lee holding his own against the Beast, and then seeing how his WWE career turned out is unfortunate. It's unfortunate, really, and granted, Keith Lee was dealing with health issues and everything while he was in WWE. He had a heart problem and everything, but still, man, and him not being pushed to the moon. And honestly, it's not much better in AEW. Hey, come on, man, he's a big guy who moves like a cruiserweight. Hey, come on, at least pop the TNT title or something on him. Speaking of which, of course, for tomorrow's episode of System Shock Radio, we are going to do our predictions and everything for WrestleDream. But I would love to see Keith Lee. Honestly, Keith Lee should be AEW World Champion. I'd go as far as to pop the world title on him, but maybe later on down the line. But at least the TNT Championship, or maybe the International Championship. But yeah, so there was those moments, and of course the aforementioned moment with Edge, including Edge even having moments with guys like Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, who were kind of dream matches, and he would go on to face later on. So kind of some neat little foreshadowing there. Of course, Edge and Roman faced off at the Universal Championship, and Edge and Seth would face off a few times throughout 2021. So, pretty cool in that regard. in those regards. Heard and just all kinds of good stuff in this Rumble. Just it's really nice. In terms of what I didn't really like, I feel like that opening part with Brock Lesnar, and Michael Cole pointed out in commentary, this really did feel like a tale of two Rumbles because Brock dominating the entire time. I'm like not the entire match, but pretty much like pretty much like the first half of the match was dominated by Brock Lesnar. Before he got eliminated by Drew McIntyre, which I think was a very smart idea because Drew McIntyre, who would win the Royal Rumble, would go on to face Brock Lesnar and take the WWE Championship from him at WrestleMania. But was it really necessary? I get I didn't want to show Brock's dominance and set up that feud with Drew McIntyre, but you didn't need to waste like that first half of the Rumble just to do it. Like, we all know Brock's dominant. Like, we all know that. You're essentially preaching to the choir here. We know Brock Lesnar's dominant, him being WWE champion, and it did beg the question, like, hey, if Brock made it all the way to the end, like, what, and won the Rumble, what would have happened? And they did speculate that in commentary. Now, you kind of knew it wasn't going to happen, but him just being in there for no reason, at least when Roman was WWE champion going into the 2016 Rumble, at least then the WWE championship was on the line, but Brock, he was just in there pretty much because it's Brock Lesnar. Or like, hey, honestly, that's the answer to a lot of questions when it comes to Brock Lesnar's career. Why did this happen for Brock? Because it's Brock Lesnar. Why do you do this? Because it's Brock Lesnar. Why do they do that with him? Because it's Brock Lesnar. or I imagine he has the pull to essentially do what he wants, because let you be the guy who tells Brock Lesnar no. But but otherwise, still a really solid match. And this, what I'm about to mention, does kind of suck. More so in hindsight. It's not really indicative of the match itself. The match is so great, but man, it's sad that Drew McIntyre got robbed of that at a moment in front of the fans at WrestleMania due to the pandemic. Obviously, that was beyond WWE's control, but man, it still stings. Like, Drew McIntyre finally gets his moment. And they mentioned on commentary that Drew McIntyre had never had a shot at the WWE Championship, which is really sad when you think about it. But here, Drew McIntyre finally gets this moment, wins the Royal Rumble, finally gets this massive moment, in his moment that's a culmination of this entire journey. He's going to fulfill the prophecy placed forth by Vince McMahon that Drew McIntyre will be a future world champion, or I think he specifically said WWE champion back in 2010, but that Drew McIntyre would finally reach that mountaintop just to essentially have it ripped away from him, at least in front of an audience. He still, won the WWE Championship and everything, but to have like the moment, the catharsis, the huge pop of the crowd, essentially the pandemic essentially ripped that away from him. And man, and you gotta feel for Drew, who, and sadly didn't have that moment back on the mountaintop yet. Will he have it in the future? Or not sure yet. Will it be as sweet now that it's in front of crowd? I'd say probably, but for now, Drew McIntyre has to have his win in front of no audience. But nevertheless, that is going to do it for this review. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do me a favor: like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends, turn on post notifications so you know every time I upload a video so you can see as soon as it drops. Let me know in the comments below your thoughts on the match and my review of the match. Did you like to like the match? Did you like to like my review of the match? Let me know. Thank you all so much for watching. I will see you guys later. Peace.